Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to discuss about access policies with Keyvault. We will learn how do you secure your application data within Keyvault with the help of access policy. Hi, my name is Rakesh Suryavanshi and you're watching Be a Learner. Before we start the discussion, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. We have lots of videos on Azure, Terraform, DevOps, and Kubernetes which you can watch and learn so many new technologies. Without getting further delay, let's begin the discussion. As I mentioned, in this particular specific video, our focus is on the access policies of the Keyvault. Before we start our discussion on the access policy, let's first of all understand the requirement of Keyvault. Let's learn why do we need Keyvault. So there are various scenarios in which you would require to store your application specific data. For example, it might possible you may have an application which is using some sensitive information to run your application. For example, the application might be using the SQL Server connection string which it requires to connect to the backend database, or it might be using some service principal to run some background job. And to store such kind of information, you don't want to store those information or into application configuration file. You always want to keep such sensitive information such as the application database connection strings into a safe place. If that's the case, then one of the reasons to use Keyvault. Next reason could be, let's say if you are performing some automation job. For example, you are creating the infrastructure as a code, let's say writing it into a Terraform, and during the infrastructure as code, it might possibly you are creating certain infrastructure resources such as a virtual machine, and you want to store the virtual machine credentials after creation so that you can access the virtual machine and the other resources. So you may want to store those credentials at the safe place. If that's the case, then you may want to use the Keyvault for this specific reason as well. It may also possible that your project has certain number of service principal or the secrets which you want to use it in your application for any purpose, maybe the application runtime at the runtime, or maybe for the monitoring or the management perspective. If that's the case, you may want to store such sensitive information like service principal into a safe place like Keyvault. So the example could be the SSL certificates, encryption decryption key, or some username and password. To pursue all these kind of a requirement, Microsoft provides a service. By definition, Keyvault is a platform as a service offering from Microsoft to manage all your keys, which is the encryption decryption keys or HSM keys, secrets, which could be your secret in the text format like username and password, connection string, or any other sensitive data, or it could be the certificate which you might be using in your application. By design, Keyvault has three different specific areas or the configuration types which is available. Like I said, keys which you can use it to perform the encryption and decryption. For example, you may want to encrypt it or decrypt the virtual machine data disk or the operating system disk with the help of encryption decryption keys. You may want to store some connection string or sensitive information which is there in the plain text. You want to store it somewhere so you can utilize the secret of the Keyvault. And then there are some certificate information like the SSL certificate which has your public and private key, which you can store it into the Keyvault as well. Apart from this, Keyvault also offers the features like versioning. So when you store or create secrets like key, secret, certificate, every time each and every specific instance of these records gets their own version. So you have full flash history of each and every record with the specific version. We'll look into the details of how the version looks like in Azure portal. And then you also have the features like soft delete and purge protection. But the meaning of the soft delete here is, let's say if you somehow deletes the key, secret or certificate, and if you have the feature enabled like soft delete, then you have the ability to recover those deleted secret which you might have deleted by mistakenly. And at the last, you also have the purge protection feature available with Keyvault. So with the purge protection, what you can do here is you can purge the data which is stored into the Keyvault. Keyvault also offers auditing feature like any other Azure services. So you could have the full auditing history, who has retrieved what kind of a secret and what purpose basically. Now let's try to understand how Keyvault is secure. So all data is protected by the access policies or the access control, which we are going to discuss in detail in this particular topic. Apart from this, you could also have the restriction apply. You can also apply the restriction at the network level into the Keyvault service as well. Though I mentioned that the Keyvault is a platform as a service, it means it is hosted on managed by the Microsoft and it is a publicly available service. But if you would like to restrict the access of this Keyvault from the specific location on a specific network or a specific area, then you could do that by applying the network policies onto the Keyvault service itself. I'll show you in a moment how do you do that. At the last, you can also apply a network level restriction with the help of features like service endpoint or private endpoint to enable the access from the specific route which you might have defined to fetch your data from the Keyvault. So what you can do with the service endpoint, basically, you can enable the service endpoint from source resource, for example, let's say a virtual machine, and between the source resource and the destination, which is your Keyvault. And then by enabling the service endpoint, the communication to get the data from the Keyvault, it will always go, instead of going it from the public route, it will go via the Microsoft backend route, and that will be much more faster and secure. And on top of that, if you don't want to go via the public route, what you can do is you can enable the private endpoint on the Keyvault resource itself. So by enabling the private endpoint on the Keyvault, it will allow you to make your Keyvault resource, instead of hosting it on a public IP address, you can host that particular Keyvault on your local virtual network, which is a virtual private network. So these are the different security features which are available in Keyvault, which you can adopt in your practices within your project to make sure how you want to allow your Keyvault resources to grant access to the resources who wants to utilize or read the data from the Keyvault. Now let's come back to the topic, which is Keyvault access policies. So as I said, you have the various access policy type defined in the Keyvault. So first of all, the access policy you could have to manage the data access of your Keyvault, and it can be applied to a specific type of operation. So what do I mean by this is you can apply the access policy on this specific type of data, for example, the specific operation onto the Keyvault. For example, you could have the access policy for application user or group, and that particular access policy could have the access permissions such as only read permission or only delete permission or only write permission, for example. Obviously, you don't want to delete the data from a specific user unless it's intentionally required. But if you want to, you can do that. So With the help of access policy, you can apply such level of access to your key vault. I'll show you in a moment within the Azure portal how you can do that. As I said, you can use the access policies with the user group, service principal, and also with the managed identity. Now, there is a limitation or a catch here with regards to the access policy. The limitation we have is we need to have a access policy assigned one per resource. For example, you could have access policy assigned to one resource, one user group or a user or a service principal or identity. You cannot combine all together. For example, you can't have a single access policy combined together for user group, service principal, and manage identity. A single access policy is one-to-one mapping with a user group, service principal, or a managed identity. Other limitation we have with the access policy is once you apply access policy with a permission, it will be applicable to all the data of your key vault. For example, if you apply access policy to a specific user with get and read permission, or get and less permission to read all the secret, it means that particular user would be able to read all the secrets available within that key vault. So you do not have a control to specify or to limit a user to read only certain number of secrets. So it might possible you might have a requirement that application A or a specific application or a specific user, you would like to give permission to only specific secret, not to all the secrets or not to all the certificates. In such cases, you don't have any option to manage such level of conditions or such level of protection with the help of access policy. So the only option you have, you need to create a different key vault and store the other secret or which you don't want to give access into a different key vault. So that's where now let's try to understand the access policy with the help of this particular diagram. As I mentioned, access policy you can apply to Azure resource with the help of manage identity. As you can see here in this diagram, we have the Azure resource, which is a virtual machine which has the manage identity, and with the help of manage identity we are using the Azure we are accessing the key vault basically. And then at the top you have the Azure Active Directory group, which is used to read or write the data or read the secret basically. Similarly, you could use the service principal or individual user accounts, such as a developer wants to access to a specific data within the key vault, they can do it through the access policy. By applying such policy, what you can make sure that any unknown user which is there at the right side, if they want to connect to the key vault and if they don't have the access to they are not part of the access policy, then the key vault will reject their request, and that's where your data has been protected with the help of the access policy. So let's try to understand how the role-based access policies within the key vault works. So I have the similar diagram wherein we have a different type of resources, such as Azure resource, which is virtual machine, which has the manage identity enabled. Then we have the Active Directory group, which is basically required for one of my application one. And then I have the service principal, which is there to read a particular certificate information from my key vault. And at the last, I have a developer who is willing to read a specific secret from the key vault. So what I can do is I can design a specific role for all the different type of resources, such as the specific role for the manage identity of my Azure virtual machine, a role for the Azure Active Directory group, service principal, and a different role for the developer to allow us read or write a specific secret. So in Azure Active Directory or Azure Keyvault, Active Directory provides a different set of roles which is specific to Keyvault, which you can use to read or manage the data of your Keyvault. So the way it works is you could have a role within the Keyvault, and then those roles you can apply to the specific resource within the Keyvault. For example, I have three different certificates, three different secrets available, and one secret is I just want to give access to only specific type of account. Then I can have that kind of a filtration which was not possible with the access policy level. I'll show you in the demonstration. If this is not clear with this particular diagram, that would be much easier to understand. So here is my Azure Key Vault which I have created, and these are the different sections or the features which is available in the Key Vault which I was talking about in my demonstration. So you have the keys where you can manage all your different keys, which is going to be, let's say, encryption or decryption keys, which you can use it for encrypting or decrypting the Azure virtual machine disk, for example. And then you could have a different secrets which you can store it as a plain text which you want to store into the Key Vault. And you could also have the certificates which you can import or generate a self-signed certificate which is right here in the Key Vault. And you could also generate a certificate which are signed by the authority, certificate authorities like GoDaddy or the DigiSign, basically Global Sign or DigiCert authorities. You can create those kind of certificate as well. Obviously you need to pay for those certificate. And as if I go back to the property of the Key Vault, just to show you, I have the Key Vault with the soft delete enabled. So nowadays, when this particular feature was released for the Key Vault, the soft delete feature, I mean, at that point of time, you did have option to basically choose whether you want to enable this feature on the Key Vault. But nowadays, Microsoft is making sure, enforcing you to opt for this particular feature, and you can't create a Key Vault without soft delete. So it's by default given to you that you have to have the soft delete feature enabled. Okay. Next is the number of days it's going to retain those deleted secret, which is by default value, or the maximum value we have is the 90 days. And then you have the purge protection option, which is like you have the option to purge your deleted data. If you want to, you can enable or disable, but once it is enabled, you can't revert it back. So you have to be pretty much sure what you want to do, whether you want to purge it or not. That's something which you can do. So if I'm going to purge it, I won't be able to revert back my settings. Okay. And then you have the protection at the network level. As I said in the presentation, that you can restrict the Key Vault access from the specific network by specifying the certain number of public IP address or the CIDR block, or you can restrict the access from the specific virtual private network. Okay, so this was about the restriction or providing the enhancing the security. Now let's go back to the setting of the access policy. So this is the access policy of the Key Vault. So when you create a Key Vault, you have the option to specify the permission model for your Key Vault. So by default, this the Key Vault is created with the Vault access policy permission model. It means you can control the access policy with the Key Vault with the help of, you can control the permission of your Key Vault with the help of access policy. But if you would like to change it to the role-based control, then you should have a specific access to do that. For example, you should have at least owner level of access onto the Key Vault, or the user administrator level of access onto the Key Vault. Then only you would be able to do that. Otherwise, you will get an error if you try to change the setting. For now, I have this access policy. Let me show you the secrets which we have in the key vault. So these are the different type of secret which we have. Not type of secret, but these are the different secrets which we have in the key vault for the various purpose which is going to be used by the various application. For example, I could have the application secret, which is specific to one application, which could be some front-end application, for example. I could have the secret of which I want to share with everyone. For example, I could have a secret. I'm just giving it a name just so that you understand what is the purpose. So that for that reason, I have given the name like that. So this is my group secret, which I may want to give access to a specific Azure Active Directory group. I have a secret called manage identity, which I may want to give access to a specific manage identity resource type. I could also have a secret name called the service principal, which I have given, which is applicable only to a service principal. And then at the last, I have a secret which has been created considering only a specific user would have access to that particular secret. Now, if that's the requirement and that's the purpose which I have to store the secret data onto this key vault, obviously I would like to control the access of the secret. For example, I don't want to share this group secret with user 1, for example, or manage identity resource, or I may want similarly, the application 1 secret only is designed or stored to keep in mind that only application 1 is supposed to use this secret, not any other user or group should have access. If that's the case, let's see if we have that option, if we have that kind of a filtration or control available with the access policy. Though this particular menu option is a bit confusing, which says the access policy. So access policy is basically you have two different permission model. I would like to call it as a permission model instead of access policy. So here in the permission model, you have role-based access control, which is selected by default. But let's say by default option is selected as an vault access policy, and now I would like to give access to the user 1. So in my Active Directory, I have a specific user. So I'll go and select the secret, for example. I just don't want to give anything. Get a list. I'll just remove everything. So only get a list permission I would like to give to a user I have. So let's say I have a user called KV user 1. If I do it like this, then what will happen is by applying this permission, what will happen, this KV user 1 would have a get and list permission to all the secret. I don't have any option to say that KV user 1 should have access to only a secret user 1, right? That's the limitation I was talking about. Now, for this, earlier there was no option. If I have such requirements, such conditions to meet, then I did not have any option. I just need to create a different key vault, which was kind of weird. So now if I go back to the role-based control access, which is this option, for example, which we have selected. So with that, we can go to the specific service type. For example, let's say secret. I can go to the user secret, for example, and from this access control management, I can assign the role to that particular secret. So let's say if I go to the role assignment, add role assignment, and then you'll see that various type of different key vault specific role will be available here. So there are thousands of role available in Azure Active Directory, but not all of them are shown here. The only roles which are related to Key Vault, those are the roles which are available here on this particular option. So let's say I just want to allow a user to read secrets, so I can use this particular option, Keyvault secret user, which says that read secret content only, and that is applicable to the role-based access control only. So that's the role which will be suitable for my requirement. Okay, let's say if you would like to perform any action, let's say read, delete, or any such read, write, or delete, or any other option, for example, then you may want to basically give this particular permission. Similarly, if you would like to read the metadata information when those key vault secrets have been created, what is the expiry date of those secrets and things like that, what is the version of the secret, current version of the secret, how many different versions available on those secrets. So if that's a requirement, then you could do that as well. So these are the different secrets, basically different roles available. So these particular roles, two roles are only specific to secret. Similarly, you have the role specific for the certificate, which you can assign to manage all your certificates. And similarly, you have the options to manage your keys as well, like crypto officer, which you can manage and assign to manage your key vault keys, for example. And then let's say if you would have assigned the contributor level access or the owner level access, they would be able to manage the full secret. That particular secret would be manageable by the owner level of access. Okay, so now for now, let's say if we give it this user or this particular role assigned to the user 1, I'll go and select next, and then you need to specify the member. Here on the member, as I mentioned in the presentation, that you could select user, application group, Azure AD group, or service principal, or you can select a manage identity resource. So in this case, we may want to use a specific user which is of type KV. So that's the user which you want to give. Okay, I'll select next, and then this is what the overall review, the role definition looks like. This is what the role definition looks like. So this is my role name, this is the scope of the role, and I'll keep a note of this just to make sure, just to show you that we can automate this with the help of Terraform. Okay, next you can assign this role to this specific secret. That's it. So let's say I would like to read this secret now with the user KV user 1. I will check. I'm already logged in to the terminal with the help of that user account, logged in with that user. I will just verify. As you can see, this is the user. I'm logged in with that account. Now I will run the get secret command, PowerShell command, to read the secret value. So I'm reading the user 1 secret on which we have given the access, and you can see that we have got the value of the secret in a plain text. Now let's perform a negative test of the same. So considering I have a different user, for example, and that user wants to access to that particular secret, and let's see if that user has the access. So let's look at the access control role assignment, which user has the access or not. Yeah, that's the user which has the access. Now let's take another user, for example. So I have a super user, a user called super user. So I'll be going to use az dash connect account. Let's see if it is connected, and now I'm connected in super user. I will just try to run the same command and see if we are able to read the secret. Considering we do not have access, this particular user, which is a super user, do not have access to that specific secret, then I should not be able to access it, and that's what the error we are getting it. Caller is not authorized to perform the access, and that's what we wanted to do. So we have controlled the access of those secrets with the help of role-based assignment, and this is what you can do. So it might possible, let's say now on the application one, I could have the role assignment to a specific type of resource. For example, let's say application one user, I could have, because it's application secret, so all the application one user could have access to this application user, and that was the purpose. Similarly, I could have a group secret. For example, let's say I would like to assign access to all the groups. I could assign the role-based access to all the groups. Next, what I can do is I can assign to a managed service principal type of user. It's just the name I have given. It's not actual service principal, just to give you some level of understanding what do we want to do with that user. Now there is a question, what if we would like to give access to what if we want to give access to all the secret? Let's say we have a Active Directory group or a user or service principal which requires to access to all the secrets, kind of a super user, for example. Then if that's the case, then you can go to the role-based access control, and from here, role assignment, once you give the role assignment which is of type Keyvault, let's say we are talking about the secrets. Obviously, if you have, same theory applies to the keys and certificates as well, but this is the let's say purpose. We can use the same role at, instead of a specific certificate level, you can assign at the Keyvault level. So once you assign at the Keyvault level, you would have the ability to to that particular user group or service principal or manage identity would have the access to all the secrets. So this is how you can manage either a specific resource or everything available in that particular resource type. Okay, now if you want to automate this role assignment procedure, how do you do that? That is what I would like to share here. So to automate the role assignment, you can go to the Terraform. So for this automation of the role assignment, you can use this Azure RM role assignment block in your Terraform code, and then here basically you can specify the scope, which is the scope which we have copied. So this was the data which we have noted down. So let's say this is the name of our role which we want to assign, let's say, and this is the scope which we want to assign it to. So if you give it this role and this assignment, and this should basically work fine. So now this is the principal ID or the object ID for the user object ID or Azure AD object ID or the service principal resource ID or object ID. So whom do you want to assign the role, the object ID or the principal ID of that particular resource. Scope, which we have basically want to define scope. Obviously I'm saying that I would like to give access to this secret only, and then you have the role definition name, what role you want to assign. For example, Keyvault secret user role I want to assign, so this will assign this user a specific user to that particular object ID, that role. Basically you can get the object ID from the Active Directory. For example, if I'm talking about assigning a role to, let's say, super user, for example, so this is going to be your principal ID, which is the object ID. You can copy this object ID, and I'm just hard coding it just to give you an idea, but obviously you want to read it or pass this information as a parameter, but this is just to give you an idea how do you perform the role assignment automation into the Keyvault. I hope this is useful to know how do you control access to your Keyvault resources, whether it is Azure keys, HSM keys, your secrets, or SSL certificate which you might have stored into the Keyvault. And I hope you have learned the differences between the access policies, limitation of the access policies, and how do you resolve those limitations with the help of Azure Keyvault Role assignment feature. Thanks for watching the video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel till now, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, watch all the available content. See you in the next video. Thanks again.